You're trying to hide that? Because it's not hidden very well. It's okay. You can just put it there.
Stand by.
Okay.
I don't want to look double parked.
Double park. Booking your next drink. All right, DaDen. Welcome back to DaDen. I'm your host, Masashi, and as always, I'm here with.
I'm Jayden. I'm the Den and DaDen. Everyone calls me Jay. What's up?
How are you doing today?
I'm good. Feeling a bit better. I've been a bit sick these last few days.
Yeah, you contacted me. Like I feel you have like a 38-degree fever or something.
Yeah, I woke up Wednesday night, Thursday morning, not feeling too well. High fever, sore head, body pain. So I was a bit scared that it might be the coronavirus, but went and got tested and I was negative. So we're good.
Oh yeah, like Corona is like what, the 9th wave right now? They say?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like it's here every second week. So
in your team right now, are there people who are like got the Corona?
yeah, with there's people who've had it before. At the moment, there's no one, but there is people that are a bit sick at the moment. So whether it be heat stroke because it's so hot here, or just the stomach bug, or just the cold, it's going around within our team at the moment. So I must have caught it on Wednesday, but I felt good yesterday. Felt a little bit iffy this morning, but went and done some training and got it out of me, and I'm feeling good.
Okay, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. Have you ever been infected with Corona?
No,
Really?
not yet. Not once.
No way.
So I'm very, very lucky. Maybe I have. I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
But to the point of where I've had to go get checked and been told positive, no. But I actually think like when it first started, like 3 years ago, I'm not sure how long ago it started, but I remember I traveled from New Zealand back to Japan, and I arrived in Japan, and like 2 days later, I was like really sick.
Oh.
But in Japan, coronavirus hadn't actually started, hadn't been like a big thing at the moment, at that time. So I didn't really know if I had it or if I was just sick. But I did have a really high fever. I was really sick for about a week. I still had my taste buds and smell, but all other symptoms I had. But at that time in Japan, it wasn't a thing. So there was no test at that time.
Oh, right. But so I think last month I actually got the coronavirus.
Oh yeah. How was that?
After these 3 years since the coronavirus started, those 3 years I have never gotten it once.
Yep.
That day, this year, last month, on July, I got it. I had a high fever. My throat was starting to hurt. So my first symptom was like my throat was starting to hurt, and then I had trouble. Like I'm like, okay, my throat hurts. It must be cold. So I go to sleep. Next day, I have a high fever of like 37, 38 degrees. So I got it checked at a hospital. Not a hospital, but like a small clinic. And then they check up on me. Like I walked to that clinic in this heat.
Oh man, it's so hot right now. That would have been terrible.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. Is it the heat?
Yeah,
fever, or is it like actual fever? But I went to
Yeah.
the clinic. They tested me. They're like, "Oh yeah, you have the coronavirus." I'm like, "Oh okay." So
Did you lose your smell or taste?
I actually didn't, because they gave me this test, the medicine that's still being tested that was made in Japan.
Okay.
So they gave me that, so I had to sign a paper, and then they took a blood sample of mine, and then they gave me the medicine.
So you're like a tester.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I tested it.
Yeah.
For 5 days, and then after I drank it for 5 days, after 5 days, I felt better.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like with no like symptoms whatsoever. My taste buds okay. My smell's fine. I could breathe. I don't get
Shortness of breath.
yeah, shortness of breath that easily. So I guess it worked.
Yeah.
Maybe. Luckily, I didn't have anything.
What was like the quarantine period like? How long did you have to stay isolated for? Because it
Technically,
used to be like 10 days or 2 weeks. What is it now?
It's still 10 days.
Oh, okay.
But it became lower.
Okay.
Now, like the strictness became lower. So now you could get out technically after 5 days, but they tell you to wait until like 10 days to get it like everything out of your system in a way. But I had work that the next day. On the day I got the corona, I had work the next day. So I called my producer and I'm like, I can't go. I had the coronavirus. And he's like, okay, we'll reschedule. So they rescheduled everything a week after. And then I went, I worked after a week after I recovered from the coronavirus.
Oh, yeah, well, that's good that you've recovered then.
Yeah, it's really frustrating though, because I've never had it. And out of this year, I happened to get it.
Yeah.
That was really like, that's a good experience, but it's a frustrating experience as well.
Yeah. Do you get sick often? Because I'm someone that I rarely get sick. But when I do get sick, I get really sick.
What's seasonal for me? Like when the season changes, like this only happens in Japan though, because I guess I lived here for so long. Like every time a season changes, I tend to get like a really bad headache or a bit of a fever in a way, but it's not as bad. But that's when I get it. It's seasonal change. I get it a lot.
Fair enough.
But I had influenza during my college year, university year, and I never went to the hospital for that. I waited it out. So I was like coughing in my room.
Oh, okay. I hate those tests that you have to take for the corona PCR and the influenza when they put it up your nose.
Oh, yeah.
I had to do that on Wednesday 2 times up each nostril, and
really?
Man, I hated it.
They only did one for mine.
I had to do one for corona test, and then I had to do the other nostril for the influenza test, just to be certain which one it is, or if I did have either of them. And I didn't have either of them, which was very lucky, but still to take that test, it's a very painful and feels like it's touching my eyeball, like a little long stick cotton bud touching your eyeball.
It's like I know how the Egyptians felt when they had to take out the brains and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Wow. It was luckily you didn't get it.
Yeah, I was very, very lucky. But apart from the coronavirus, how's your week been? Busy with work?
Yeah, busy with work. Luckily, very busy with work. A lot of editing.
Yeah. Just a normal editing week for you? No special events or special projects or anything?
Nothing.
Apart from DaDen?
Yeah, apart from DaDen, nothing. But like, so today what I want to talk about with you is the language in Japan.
Yes.
So last time we talked about how when you first came you came here to Japan, you talked about your first word, which was atsui. That was the first word that you learned. But like, when you lived here for 10 years, over 10 years now. So you must have like picked up like a couple words that's like good to learn first. For those who don't know the language, a useful word, useless word, but like when you first came, you didn't know that much of a language, but you came here to live for a long term. How did you study the language itself besides like talking to other people and stuff?
So I studied the language. So I was in university. We did have Japanese class where we learnt the language. So just your typical Japanese class where teaches you language, vocab, grammar, all that stuff like that. I got taught in the classroom, but I'm not much of a classroom person. I can't really sit down and study it. I'll listen, but it just won't stay in my brain. So I need to do like physical things, like cards. Like a friend that I came over with, he made like these katakana and hiragana cards, which are like alphabet cards to like remember the alphabet, like A, I, U, E, O, stuff like that. So that was like, we were playing like cards with that, like what's this card? Lay it all out on the table, pick the A card. So that was one way that we learned how to learn the grammar. But the best way for me was just like just trying to increase the amount of times that I was forced to kind of use it. So like I would learn in the classroom and it would just like be stuck in my brain, but there's no really practical way to use it within the classroom. So I remember like going to training and like trying to like speak to the other guys in the Japanese language, like saying like nani or moikai or something like that, which means like what or one more time, or like arigato. just forcing myself to use the language as much as I could. Because I would learn it in the classroom, but that's where it would stop. So once I would learn it in the classroom and put it into practical, that was the best way for me to pick it up and learn it over time. Go to McDonald's. It's a Western restaurant, so there's it's like Big Mac and stuff like that. But like learning was like kore, sore, like this, that. Just saying like kore, please, which means like this, please, just like pointing. It's only a small thing, but you're still forced to use it. And over time, my brain just like hooked onto it and was just always using the language.
Weren't you tempted to like go to like, because there are so many like foreign people that there are areas where foreigners like pile group together in a way, like Shibuya has one, Shinjuku also has one. There are like pubs, bars, like clubs. Weren't you tempted to like go there, just kind of like relax and like speak English once in a while?
Yeah, of course, 100%. Sometimes I just get so frustrated that you just like communication is such a big thing in the world, like for someone. And when you aren't able to communicate with the people around you, the ones that are closest in your surroundings, it gets frustrating. So just like stepping out away to a bar, a foreign, like a pub, like a British pub, there's lots of those around in Tokyo areas, just to speak English again. Yeah, it's good to remove the frustration, but I think if you can like push through that frustration, that's when you can pick up the language a lot quicker and a lot faster. So I would always surround myself with my Japanese mates, my Japanese teammates. They were kind of forced to try and speak easy Japanese for me to understand. And then I was forced to try and understand what they were saying. Like maybe use like a Google Translate while you're listening, but you're still surrounded, you're still forced to learn the Japanese language. So for myself, I would always just try and surround myself with my mates, with my teammates. Like, just watching TV, you might not understand it, but you're still listening to the Japanese language and it's still processing within your mind. So just trying to increase the amounts of time that you hear it and listen and forced to speak it definitely helped me to pick up the language over time.
What I'm really interested is that how your school system, like the university that you went to, how were there like system to like, were you in a Japanese learning class only, or were you learning like, because you mentioned you majored in business, but you didn't know Japanese at that time, so how was the process? Like, did you learn Japanese like in a year and then you had to take the test to get into the actual university, or?
So because of the scholarship, we got into university automatically.
Oh, okay.
But to complete the degree, obviously we had to have a level of Japanese language. So for the first 2 years, we had about 60 credits that we had to get in Japanese language to be able to continue on to get the rest of our 60, I think it's 125 credits you need to graduate. So we had to get 60 credits in the Japanese language to continue on to get the rest of the 65 in the business management degree. So we studied it. We had classes that would take over about 2 years. And if you passed every class over the years, you would get 60 credits. So we pretty much learned the language for about 2 years, a year and a half, depending on how quick you can get your credits. And then we went on to study the business management degree. But the teachers were, we were there on sports scholarship. We were there for sports, not so much academics. So they kind of gave it a lot easier to me or to the other sports people. So they knew our level of Japanese. And for us, in order to get the credits for their business management class, they would kind of make it a little bit easier for us. So that was very helpful. But we still had to have a level of Japanese, especially business management. Like, that's a whole nother language in English and Japanese that we had to try and learn. Like, if you're talking about rugby, like, I can speak that language in English and Japanese very easy. But business management, I have no clue what that language is, either Japanese or English. So we had to kind of learn technical terms that like economy and money and stuff like that for our business management degree to be given or to be passed. So that was very difficult. But the teachers were very nice. I think I'm a very lovable person, so the teachers let me get away with a little bit more than others. But it wasn't easy. Like, it wasn't given. We still had to put in a bit of work to try and pass our classes. We still had tests where there was like compulsory that we had to do this level of Japanese. So it was difficult, but like anything, if you put your mind to it, if you grind it out hard enough, I think it's easy enough for anyone to pass, regardless of your ability to learn.
What was so there were other students as well, right?
Yes,
other
yes.
foreign
So
students.
there was one other guy the same year as me, who's also from New Zealand, and then we had 3 other younger guys that were from Fiji and Tonga. So they came over, like me, on a rugby scholarship, and we all studied. There were different levels, but we all had the same process.
Okay. So were there like levels like complete beginners, intermediate, and advanced kind of thing?
In our Japanese class, we were like smack bang all with all the. There was like normal foreign students as well that were coming over for a foreign exchange program that had been studying the language before they came to Japan.
Okay.
So their Japanese level was very high. So we were we were still new to the language. We were still trying to learn the language, and we were trying to catch up to these other students from like China or Vietnam or America that had come over to continue their Japanese language studies. So we had to play catch up with those guys as well. So that was very frustrating and difficult at times. But that also kind of like, we're sports people, so we're quite competitive. Whether it be in a classroom or whatever, especially me, I hate losing, no matter what it is, especially to, just a normal person. So that kind of motivated me and the other guys to try and pick up the language a lot quicker. And they were in like a foreign community, so they learnt Japanese in the classroom, but they were hanging out with each other, so they were speaking English a lot compared to us, where we were learning it in the classroom, then we'll go back to our team and train with our teammates, and we were still learning the language. We were still using the Japanese language. So that was that definitely helped in our advantage, because we didn't have that time to hang out with them because we had training or we had camps or stuff like that. So the amount of times that we would learn it and then put it into practical was a lot more than just being a foreign student over here in Japan.
That's good. You guys were forced yourself to be in the Japanese environment.
Yeah, definitely.
Because like all the sports team, I'm sure they're all Japanese. So you kind of had to communicate in Japanese. Yeah,
so we were forced to kind of communicate as best as we could in the Japanese language. And, we're there for 4 years at university, 3 or 4 years. So, over time it becomes easier. You just have to force yourself to learn it. There'll be frustrating times, but if you can overcome that, it just becomes easier in time, like anything you do.
What did your teammates teach you, the first, like, Japanese language and stuff like that?
Some good words, some bad words.
Everyone's
just like when when an English speaker teaches a Japanese person, you always teach them the bad words.
Yeah.
So they would always teach me the bad words, or I don't know if it's good to say, but bad words. Like, we had guys from like Kansai, and they were like speaking like a whole different language, which I thought was so cool. And so I wanted to like learn the Kansai language, and they have like their own bad words, stuff like that. So it was definitely learning words like from what they would teach me, but mainly just rugby terminology, because we had to try and communicate with our teammates, because if we couldn't communicate, we weren't going to go good, because they were pretty much waiting for us to lead them in terms of play on the field. And rugby is a 50-man sport. It's not just 1 or 2 people. So we had to improve our communication so that the whole team could be good together. So we were just trying to learn rugby terminology like jackal, tackle, which is like pretty much English. Yeah. But it's the way you say it. Like tackle is like tackle, but they say like takuru.
Takuru, yeah.
Or like jackal, which is like when you go over.
Jakkaru.
Jakkaru. Or rak, but they call it raku. Yeah. So trying to fix that pronunciation so that we could communicate better was frustrating because we had to adjust our English level. Because it was English words, but we had to say it in a Japanese way. But once that communication improved, that definitely helped. Life in and outside of rugby.
So like katakana are the words that's very close to any foreign word that Japanese people say are all in katakana. Like you just say jackal is jakkaru, rak is raku. And those things like Mike will be like Mike.
Yeah.
That's like same name as like Michael Jackson's Mike.
Yeah, like even when you say it's like Mike-kuru.
Mike-keru.
Yeah, so it's just like, especially when you try and speak English words in a Japanese way.
Yeah. I had that experience a lot. Like, so like when people speak to me, like Japanese people speak to me in like katakana, I always say, what did you just say?
Yeah.
I don't know what you just said. And then I process it. It takes me a while after that. Oh, so this is what you're trying to say. And then I say the word in English. Like, that's when they say like, you're so American. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I pronounced it wrong, kind of thing. Like I make them feel bad. Anyway, so it's hard, kind of.
So before you came back to Japan, could you speak Japanese while you were in America?
Yeah. Because my family were in my house it's Japanese. Outside is English. So I was able to get the both language inside and out. But the only problem is that like being bilingual is difficult because you learn two languages kind of like 50-50.
Yeah.
But it could go lower as well. So like Japanese could be 25 and English could be 75 in a way. But because it was very difficult for me to learn both language. It was kind of, and I hated studying as well. So there was like 25-25 for both. So not even 50-50. So I had a difficult time in America learning English. So I was not in the normal English program. I was in those like foreign exchange kind of English program where they learn English from like a different perspective. And then once I went to high school, I went to a normal I started reading books, a lot of books in English. That's how I improved my English skill.
Yep.
So I got before I graduated high school, I was able to go to a normal English class, then graduate. But during that time, I was able to speak the Japanese language, but I couldn't read kanji that much. That's the only thing I couldn't do.
So you were speaking Japanese at home, but outside of home was mainly
English.
So once you picked up the English language, you were in a normal class. Did you feel like you were still left behind, like you were a little bit behind other people in your classroom, or?
I did. I don't know, like about being left behind. I don't know. It's been a long time, so I don't know how I felt during that time, but I felt like I finally caught up. That's how I felt. Other than that, I don't know if I felt like very sad that this is my level of English or frustrated. I don't think I had that kind of like emotion during that time.
Do you think that restricted your English learning though? Like you would always, when you go home, you back to Japanese, and then you go back outside of your home and you're trying to pick up the English language again. Do you think that restricted your learning or not so much?
Not so much, I think. I think like it's choice. I feel like it's either you want to study or not.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, when you live a normal life, you speak the language, you pick it up. I mean, you could tell by my like accent that I don't have a foreign accent when
No,
I
you
speak
don't.
English. So I have it's an American accent. I don't know if it's an American accent.
It's
People
a
might
very
say wrong.
American accent.
People might say wrong
It's
thing.
a very American accent. You sound like you're from America.
But yeah, like I think that's one good thing. Like,
Okay.
I was able to learn the language at the country, so I have the like actual native tongue, but at the same time in Japanese as well, I could kind of blend in enough to speak the language properly. So it just, I guess I was fortunate enough to get best of both worlds.
So do you think learning English in America was a lot easier to pick the language than if you were to learn it here in Japan?
Definitely. I mean, like, look at the environment here. Like, it's
Yep.
not English friendly
Yep.
yet. There are areas where you could use English language because there's those who actually learn the language and could speak it, but it's still not everywhere. It's still limited. So, and then like everything's in Japanese. Obviously,
Yep.
it's Japan. Like TV, the signs, the menus. Well, menu not so much, I guess, now
Yeah.
because it's in English as well. But like, and like there are more people who could only speak Japanese than those who could speak another language. Like, there are probably not that many bilinguals yet. I don't know the ratio, but that's my kind of image. Like, if I was raised in Japan, I think I wouldn't have this accent right now. Like, for a fact,
Yeah.
I'll probably have that Japanese English accent.
So here's the real question. Is Japanese your first language or is English your first language?
That is a good question because I have no idea. Like, I want to say English,
Yeah.
but I feel like I don't know, like, I was a year old. I don't know what I spoke during that time. I'm pretty sure I said mom or dad, but I think it's Japanese is my
I think
first.
it's Japanese.
Yeah. Like, if it's one word that I had to say, like a mama or like dada, then it's probably Japanese.
Yeah.
Like, it's katakana, but it's Japanese.
Mama.
Yeah. But yeah, in your case, that's different because you're English. But no, New Zealand speaks different language, right?
New Zealand, they speak Māori,
Maori.
which is another language, but it's not many people speak it as much as there used to be. It's definitely coming back into the culture, into schools and stuff like that in the country, but it's definitely a language that is decreasing year by year because they don't teach it as much. Not many people speak it as much, but that's another language of New Zealand is the Māori language. But my family, so I'm Cook Island Māori, which is like another Pacific island, close to like the islands of like Fiji and Tonga and Samoa. So my grandparents, they both can speak Cook Island language fluently. That's their first language. And my mum, she can understand it and speak it a little bit. But it never really got passed down to me or my brother, which was, kind of a stink thing. But just living in New Zealand, it's not a big language. So if we didn't learn English, then the Cook Island language wouldn't help us get into schools, wouldn't help us pass tests. So obviously English had to be our priority language to learn, but it's definitely cool listening to my grandparents speak to each other in the Cook Island language. Like myself, now that I can speak another language, I definitely see the power and the importance of having another language. I'm not Japanese, but carrying that tradition of another language is very important to the culture. And I think my mum, she's really understood that, so she can understand it and she's trying to speak it, so she's learning it every day, because that's how my grandparents they communicate to me and my brother in English, but it's kind of like broken English. Especially my grandmother, she's got she breaks down her words into sometimes you have to puzzle it together what she's saying. But when my grandparents speak to their siblings or to their cousins or the older family, it's so cool to hear that Cook Island language with them speaking. But for myself, it's just predominantly English, which is my first language. And I wouldn't say I'm fluent in Japanese, but Japanese would definitely be my second language right now.
Like your family and your second family here in Japan.
Yes.
You mentioned that your grandparents speak to you in broken English.
Yes.
That goes the same for you, doesn't it? You speak to them and
Yeah, broken Japanese. Especially the first time I came over, I was still a young student, so my Japanese was not the best. And them being a very older, traditional Japanese lady, she's like probably a whole different era of the Japanese language. So you have to speak real proper Japanese to her for her to understand. But I was lucky that my two older brothers, the Japanese older brothers, especially the one above me, he can speak English really good. And right now he lives in America, so his English is pretty much perfect. So he helps me to communicate with the others because the two parents, my Japanese parents, they can't speak English at all. And the oldest brother, he can kind of speak English, but not really. I think the next two that can speak English is my Japanese niece, my oldest brother's oldest daughter. Her English is very good.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And her Japanese is a lot better than mine, so sometimes she teaches me Japanese, and when I'm trying to communicate with them, she can kind of like pick it up. So her English is definitely learning every day, but very impressed with her level of English.
Like, I don't know if it's just like I do this a lot when it comes to language, is that like someone speaks like a certain like word to me, and then I process it in my head and kind of like take the meaning. I did this in English a lot as well. Like when I learn a new word, like when you read a book, it's in a sentence, right? And then you kind of like, for example, like if the word difference, it's in a sentence, there is a difference between these two objects. When you say that word difference, you could kind of understand like, okay, difference means like two type of object that's not similar, right? Do you ever process that in Japanese as well? Like you hear a new word, and then you kind of like try to understand it yourself and kind of like process it in your head. It probably means this. Do you get that?
Yeah, I think like just in general, the Japanese language, I always feel like when they speak, then I have to translate it in my head to English, and then I have to translate that, what I want to say, from English to Japanese. So I feel like every time I speak, I have to process everything twice as much as if I could speak it or listen or understand it fluently. So even when I learn new words, like hearing new words, I love hearing new words and I love trying to use the new words, but I have to understand what that new word is, and then I have to understand when that new word can be used and when it can't be used, because Japanese is like times when you can use certain words that you can't use it at certain times. So it's like you have to process everything like 2, 4, 6 times more than if you could understand it fluently. It's mentally challenging and very draining at times, but I really enjoy learning the Japanese language now that I'm at a certain level of being able to speak, so continually improving. Although at times it's frustrating and can be very difficult, it's a challenge that I really like to take upon and really enjoy trying to improve my level of Japanese.
When you first like learned the word, like when you came as an exchange student, for example, like you didn't know what probably like good morning.
No, I absolutely had nothing. Like
I'm
I
sure-
knew sushi.
I'm sure like,
Sushi.
sushi is
Yeah.
sushi is like English as well. So. But like I'm sure like your parents in Japan
Yep.
said like Ohayo every time.
Yeah.
When you heard that word for the first time, did you kind of like guess what the meaning was, or did you ask them what it
No, I just guessed because it's the morning time. They say
uh,
Ohio. But one thing that I kind of guessed was when you come home and they say Okaeri, I'm like, what was that? What does that mean? And then they're waiting for you to respond, and like, oh, I don't even know what to respond or something like that. That was definitely something that I wanted to, because Okaeri and Tadaima is it's like a good morning or a good night. It's like something that you use daily. But in a foreign country like New Zealand, you don't really say like, oh, welcome home. Well, sometimes you do, but like it's not something that's like, how would you say atarimai in English? Like, it's not something that's
normal.
normal. So every time you come home, they say okaeri, and then you say tadaima. So that was something that I was like, oh, what's that? So that's something that I had to ask about. But like good morning, good night, like ohayo or oyasumi, that was just something that you just kind of already understood, because at the times they would say it. And that's just like a normal greeting thing. But I think something different is okaeri and tadaima, which is like another thing that's normal here in Japan. So I had to learn what that was. And now I kind of use that every day. So not that anyone's coming home to me, but
I was gonna say you live by yourself. I think. Like,
I walk home, I say okaeri, and I reply to myself tadaima. Don't call me a loner.
no, you
Come on, guys.
You probably
Just
have
me
a
and my
robot.
friends. Yeah. I'm talking to Alexa,
Alexa.
but I don't have one. But
What was that other robot that SoftBank had? Peppergun. Have you ever thought of buying one?
never heard of that.
Really? Peppergun? You never heard of it? That white robot that has an iPad in front of it.
Oh, the
Moves
thing
around.
that's like, yeah, SoftBank has those little robots.
Yeah. When
And
you go
sushi,
some
sushi
sushi
places.
restaurant has one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, whoa, that's scary.
When you say okaeri, you say tadaima.
No, that's about freaky. One of those little things walking around the house. Not that my house is big enough for it to walk around, but
Any questions for me? Why I think about what?
I literally had a question for you, and then you brought up pipa, and now I forgot it because I was trying to think of a robot, which made me forget my question for you. Thanks for distracting me. Because I was trying to think of a pipa.
Peppergun. Was there any word that like kind of like in katakana and stuff that kind of like frustrated you learning it? Because like when you there are times for me when I speak Japanese is that when I speak in katakana, I can't say the word properly at times, even till now. Even now I can't do it like can, kang. That's I could do that normally. When it's like a long word, I can't tend to say. I tend to say in more English, kind of close to English. Were there any times that you had those kind of situations?
I think just katakana, trying to speak katakana in general, when you're trying to explain it to a Japanese person, because your pronunciation is always going to be how it's pronounced, but they don't understand that. So I always get it like, I'm not too sure, but like something like Aquarius. Aquarius. And then,
Aquarius.
but when you say it, like, it's like Aquarius.
Aquarius.
And then they're like, what did you say? And then you go Aquarius. They're like, oh, you don't, like, for me, I do not understand the difference of what I just said, but just that little bit of like saying each vowel so clearly, that's what makes them understand it. And they go, oh, sorry, because your pronunciation is so good. And I'm like, they're like, Hatsuon ga mo yosasigi.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
And I'm like, is that a bad thing then? Like, because they're saying your pronunciation is good. Your pronunciation is like too good for them to not understand.
Right.
So you don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, just in katakana in general, but like just saying like, I would say like Aquarius or Pokari Sweat, and they're like, what? But then you say like it slowly, saying all vowels properly, Aquarius, Pokari Sweat, and they're like, oh. And for me, I don't even understand the difference. They kind of sound similar, but just that slight change for them.
Were there any like funny katakana words that you that obviously it's a katakana is like can be translated to English a lot more easier than the kanji and stuff. Were there any katakana that kind of like gave you the giggle in a way? Because there is one that I can think of right now.
What is it?
Karupis.
Karupis.
When you say it in English, kalpis. A lot of my foreign friends kept on saying that, like, oh, this, what? How do you say this word? Karupis. Wait, what? Kalpis? No, karupis.
True. Yeah, I never
Yeah.
thought of that.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm like, wow, that's true. Like because I know the language, I never really thought about it. That would surprise me a lot.
That is a new one. Yeah, I never thought of it.
Yeah, you never think
Like
about it
that.
when you're in this country that much.
Yeah.
Like when you like speak with a lot of other people, like a lot of foreign people, that's when you kind of gain new discoveries.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't had much friends travel over here recently. I had one friend that came over, I think February, March time. A high school friend come over here traveling, and he was just pretty much using Google Translate to get around and speaking in like using English words but trying to say it in like katakana way to get himself around Japan, which he thought was quite interesting, how you can just like you can kind of speak English but say it in like a katakana way and it's easier for them to understand. But like if you were to say, do you have many friends in America?
What is that supposed to mean?
I'm just wondering, do you have any friends?
I do have friends in America. Thank you very much.
Has any come over here recently?
Recently, no.
So if there was like someone that would come travel over to Japan, what's some useful words that you think they could use while traveling around?
If they don't know the language?
They don't know the language at all.
Oh. Well, first off, I think I'll teach them how to greet. I'll teach them how to stop a person. Suimasen. Excuse me.
Oh, suimasen, that's a good word to use.
Yeah,
Yes.
excuse me. Because, you kind of have to stop someone if you
Yep.
want to know where you want to go.
Yep.
So I'll probably teach them that first. Excuse me,
yeah.
suimasen. And then, like, probably, like, simple words like point, like pointing. Koko,
Yeah.
kara koko. Doyat is too long, right? Like, how do you?
Yeah.
It's like gesture. That's the only way you can do it. Like koko. How?
True. Yeah, I think like sumimasen, I never thought of that, but maybe something like onegaishimasu. Maybe it's a little bit long, but I feel like that's easy to remember. Like onegaishimasu, like you can say like two people onegaishimasu. I think like it's like saying please, but I think when you just say two, it can come along quite rude.
Suimasen is much more like close to please in a way in Japanese.
So would you like if they say how many people, would you go two sumimasen?
Oh no, I wouldn't say that. 2お願いします is probably
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
but like like when you order some food and stuff, when you call the waiter, you say すいません.
Yeah. Sumimasen is
right?
definitely. I think kore, koko, they're easy words to remember.
Yeah.
And pretty much if you can, hand gestures will help. But like kore, like what do you want to order? Kore or kore, where, something like just
Yeah.
little action words like that can can definitely help you get around. Excuse me.
But yeah, like even going to traveling to other countries, usually I do that as well. Like I learn the basic words that I could use, and then I just point. Everything's like hand gestures and stuff like that. So.
Do you think Japan's quite friendly to tourists at the moment? Foreign friendly at the moment?
Way more friendly than probably like in the past, I think,
Yeah.
in my image. Tokyo is much more kind of like it became much more friendly now, but I think like before that they kind of didn't want to like didn't want to be involved in a way. So when you call them out, like say すいません, they'll be like,
I think since the Olympics, which was supposed to be here, I think when it was announced that the Olympics was going to be hosted there, I definitely think Japan had to realize that they had to be a lot more foreign friendly. So I think although the Olympics was held, but wasn't held where people could come and watch, but I think the Olympics kind of kicked in Japan's that they had to become a more foreign friendly, a more English friendly country, because I remember before that it was just like Japanese everywhere. I remember like my teammates, we had like 80, 90 teammates, and there was only like 2 people that could kind of speak English. Like I thought there would be a little bit more than that, like including coaches.
Right.
But altogether there was like, you could probably count on one hand how many people could speak English. But now that the years have gone on, my current team, there's definitely a lot more people that they're not fluent, but they've definitely been influenced by the change in ideas that English is a big language that needs to be learned. So a lot more people nowadays, I still don't think it's enough, but the demand for English is a lot. People are wanting to learn more than what it has been previously.
Right. Like, I think Japan is starting to become finally more towards bilingual. You kind of have to learn 2 language. Because in the States, I don't know about New Zealand, but like in the States, we have to learn a second language. And that's part of the curriculum. So I learned my second language is Spanish.
Oh, wow. Hola.
¿Cómo estás?
Doritos.
Doritos.
Tacos.
Oh, God, that's offensive.
Doritos, tacos.
But yeah, like I learned
Spanish, man. I didn't know that about you. You
Yeah,
can speak Spanish. Oh, wow.
I learned Spanish for 2 years.
So you can like speak a little bit of fluent, or?
Not fluently, but I know like the basic word and the words to get around Spain. So
You know, want to know what one funny thing about me is? I act like I can speak Spanish. So I know this Spanish song that I like listened to when I was a little kid, and me and my friend, we knew the lyrics off by heart.
Oh, really?
So we would always like act like we could speak Spanish, and like we would be like at dinner, we would kind of speak loud so people could hear us, and we would just act like we could speak like, "Quiero que sepas que todos los días solo beso en ti."
Oh, that does sound Spanish.
See, it does. Yeah, I know. I can speak. See, little people. Funny fact: I can speak Spanish, Español. Quiero que sepas que todos los días
That really
solo beso en ti. Regresaré a ver Madrid.
that really sounds Spanish.
El que te la pesa la pleno. Funny fact: I can speak Spanish. See,
That's really
yeah. You just triggered to me. And I was like, I can speak Spanish too. Little do I know, I have no clue what I'm saying, but it's a song in Spanish.
Oh, so that's an actual song.
It's an actual song. MC Magic, Sexy Lady.
Oh, it sounds like you were kind of ordering tacos or something.
Yeah, something like. So
It sounds like you're ordering 20 tacos or
So
something.
there's like this ad in New Zealand that used to come on all the time. El que te la pesa la pleno, which is like a taco shell. And I used to hear it all the time, and I remembered it.
Oh,
So
okay.
I act like I can speak Spanish.
Wow, but
French as well. Voulez-vous coucher avec ce soir, s'il vous plaît? That's a song. That's another
oh
song.
really?
Voulez-vous coucher avec ce soir?
Wow.
You don't know that song?
No.
So yeah, I act like I can speak French as well.
That's really
It's a hidden
good.
talent of mine.
Yeah.
So I can be an actor in French, or
in French.
I got an American accent as well.
No, that's not even American.
Troy Polamalu from the West LA.
You sound Texan for some reason.
It's a hidden fact about me. I can speak multiple languages.
That is a talent.
Yes.
I never knew that about you.
Yeah. Well,
Wow. Like,
I didn't know you could speak Spanish. Well, we both can speak Spanish, apparently.
oh, you don't even know what you're saying. That's amazing. Wow, that's a talent right there.
Yeah, so-
Wow. Okay. In New Zealand, you guys don't learn second language?
No, it's not compulsory.
Oh, really?
So the thing that is compulsory is religious education.
What do you guys learn in religion?
So you learn about God, Jesus. So that's a compulsory class that you have to take until your 2nd or 3rd year in high school.
Oh, really?
Religious education and sexual education.
Okay.
So that is compulsory.
Okay.
Priorities, I know, right?
Wow, that's
But I definitely think, especially in learning another language, that is definitely something. I know if I was to have kids, I would definitely want them to learn 2 languages, especially English and Japanese or something like that. The importance of another languages. It can pretty much increase your future opportunities if you can speak 2 languages, especially speaking English
yeah.
and another one. So
Yeah, I think it's gonna be the norm now. Like
Yep.
you have to base form. You have to have 2 language.
yeah,
And then after that, like I don't know whether you want to build it to 3, 4, 5 language, but base would be 2 language at most. So like having only one language is not gonna be a specialty anymore. So,
But even in Japan, like, is English is a compulsory class to have, isn't it?
it is.
Here in Japan, but I don't think.
Have you ever spoke to a Japanese person who actually learned English in Japan?
Like, I've never like spoken to them, but like every time
have you asked them what they learned in high school?
No, I've never. I just always like sometimes I see them like trying to study English, or they're like saying, "Oh, 英語勉強しないと."
But like, when they go to university, they actually start to learn like proper grammar and stuff. But like in high school, I don't know what high school? あれ高校からでしょ英語。中学校から。今。
小学校。
So apparently right now, like, so from elementary you speak English, but like what they learn, I don't know now, but like back in the days, what I heard from other people, what they learned in their class was this one word. This is a pen. I was like, yeah, I know what that is. What do you trying to say? This is a pen. It's like, okay, that is a useless English word that you just learned right now. So that
Yeah, I definitely think they don't study useful
yeah, that was funny,
English
though.
languages.
That was
This is
really...
a pen. It's like that song. What's that song?
Oh, pen, pineapple, apple, pen.
Pen, pineapple, apple, pen.
It's exactly like that. That song is much more useful, I think.
Yeah, true. A lot of people can remember that phrase.
Yeah, definitely.
I definitely think English, but
Didn't they teach you when you were learning Japanese? Didn't they say like, wasn't there like specific like sentence that you thought might be like when you think about it now? Oh wait, I think this is a useless word. Did you have any? Do you remember any, like from the textbook and stuff?
good question.
Like I would not think like Japanese textbook would have like これはペンです. Like this is a pen. There's no way they have that in the textbook. I don't know if you
like,
had it.
I just remember like what they would teach us is like not what practical. You wouldn't use like practical. Like if you were to have like a normal conversation, like everything was just so really structured, serious, real proper. But if you were to go out into the real world, it'll be a lot harder to speak like that because the structure and it's real formal style of learning. Like you wouldn't like go like これはペンです like that. This is a pen. You go, oh, it's a pen. So I think like the difference in like the classroom language to the real world language of learning the Japanese language, there was a bit of a gap between, which is why I never felt learning in the classroom was best for me, because when you go out in the real world, you wouldn't speak like that proper.
Yeah.
Like not even Japanese people speak like that proper most of the time.
Yeah.
Like 80% of the time you wouldn't say これはペンです それは何ですか それは何 That's how you would speak normally.
Right.
So you wouldn't go on like, oh, それは何ですか Ah, わかりました Like you wouldn't speak like that.
Yeah.
Like 80% of the time you would not speak like that. But that's what we were learning in the classroom. But you would like, それは何 Oh, なるほど Just stuff like that. That's because when you would try to use that with your friends or your teammates, it's like they were like, why are you speaking like that? They don't even understand what you're saying. So I definitely think like classroom learning is good for textbooks, is good for like if you need to get into universities or pass to get into certain companies or certain jobs. It's definitely very useful for that. But in reality, in real life scenarios and situations, you really have to, it's a whole different style of learning and language.
Yeah, I think you have to go out into the world to learn the language. It's best to actually speak with real people. It's not like in classrooms not real people, but like in real life situation, you don't use what the textbook teaches. That's in any language. So, but But like, what useful word that you probably could learn, you say is that like like これは what is, that is definitely a useful word. これは just saying just that, just not full sentence. これは then do people know what you're trying to ask? So if what they say from their mouth you can understand it, then that's one way to like communicate. これはこれ this is that. 何 those
Yeah,
kind of-
これ、それ. I think those are very useful words to use. So when you left Japan and you came back to Japan, did you feel like the difference, because you were only speaking it at home and that was the only time that you had the Japanese language, but when you came back to Japan 13 years later, how many years later, was there a big difference in the language? Like, did you feel like different levels of the language because you would have come back into work world? How was the difference or the change in the language for you?
It's a good question. Never
Thank
really
you.
thought about it.
Thank you.
It's like,
I'm not just good looks.
I don't know about good looks, though. But like, yeah, that's a good question actually. Like, I was like, I came to Japan like a couple times just for like holiday seasons, like summer season, especially the season right now. I come back to Japan and I went to school in Japan. So I experienced Japanese in elementary school. I never had that much of a language barrier in a way. So I never really thought about it. Like, nothing changed really. I think only thing that kind of like I had difficulty was keigo.
Yeah.
Speaking in a polite, respectful term was the most difficult thing for me. I hated it. Like, in your case, I could speak the language. I know the language because, you know, I was raised with it. But in your case, you had to learn it from scratch.
Yeah.
At one in a young age and one coming back as an adult. Do you ever get a time like, you know, when while you're speaking Japanese, do you ever get a time like what you're thinking in your head and what's coming out of your mouth is different?
Yeah, all the time. Like I said before, I have to like think like 2 times as more than what I would really want to, because I have to translate what I would say in English into Japanese. But then when I want to say it in Japanese, I actually don't know how to say it in Japanese. So then you try and like change it or like cover it up with like a different word. But sometimes it just doesn't sound like it makes sense at all. So it's like, it's definitely difficult trying to, how I had to learn it from scratch. And then even now to this day, I still have to process it 2 times. And even now, like living in Japan, I pretty much predominantly only speak Japanese. So my English is going down every year, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
But
I like lose. I watch so much. Like I use Japanese
oh,
all the time.
oh really?
Like, even when I go back to New Zealand, I was like speaking like Japanese to like my family because
Really?
Japanese is slowly changing my mind to like, because I was getting so frustrated with trying to go from English to Japanese, I was trying to work my mind so that it would just automatically go Japanese. Like when I said it's hot, like even in New Zealand when I went back, it was summer, and I was just like walk out, oh, atsu. For me, I'm pretty happy because I've got that mindset of Japanese is like what I want to try and process first. But when I don't understand, but when I finding it difficult to translate into Japanese, trying to figure out the English, I'm still trying to figure out the English now because I feel like my English has gone down a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's difficult. Like when I was in New Zealand, I was like always like, kore wa? And then my family, what are you saying?
Oh, that's interesting.
Which is like, for me, like I'm happy because like I've been trying to train my brain so that I don't have to work twice as hard, so that it would just automatically be Japanese. But it's kind of taken away my English level. And because I always just try focus on just Japanese, work Japanese, so that it's easier to pick up the language. When it does come time to where I have to use English, I forget like what my English is, which is definitely a challenge at the moment. Like every time I talk to family or have to speak English again, sometimes I forget. Like just before I was like, well, how do you say atarimai in English? Was like normally. And normally that's not like a hard word to remember, but because my brain is just so switched to just process Japanese first, which is a good thing. But then I've gone back to like, oh, now I have to try and practice English now. Not that my English is bad, but
I don't know about that.
my Spanish is better. But like just trying to change back to English and Japanese it's a good thing, but it's also a tough thing at the same time.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I definitely like my last holiday home, I was always speaking randomly at times Japanese.
Oh.
Like when we were talking, nandayo. Like, what are you saying? Oh, no, nothing. You get frustrated. Oh my god. Just saying things like that, which is a good thing because they don't understand what you're saying. But like Japanese is like, I've just always tried to train my mind just to be automatic Japanese.
Wow, I've never thought that kind of like that would change your mindset so much. Like,
Yeah.
I always wonder, like, you know, like when you because Japanese is not your first language. It's not something you're not used to too much. So like when you process it in your head, of course, like you process it twice as much more than usual to get to understand it and then like word it out. So just like training yourself to process it and then like losing English in the process it's an interesting thing. Like,
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a sports thing as well. Like you might be hurt, but you tell yourself you're not hurt.
Kind of like so it's like psychology.
Yeah. Like this morning when I woke up, I wasn't feeling too good, so I was like, I'll just stay in bed and want to go do some training. I was like, no, I'm okay. I'll just go do some training, and done a little short training and I feel fine. So it's just like when you learn the language as well, like force yourself to learn it and you will learn it. Force yourself to remember it and you will remember it. Bit of psychology for you. Didn't know that. Spanish and psychology. I'm a man of many tricks, aren't I?
Dang, okay, wow. That's
just like an insight into like how I process the language and just in general, just force myself to remember it, force myself to deal with it, and over time it becomes normal.
Because in my case, like there are times when I actually forget a word in English and Japanese. So that frustrates me a lot. But at the same time, like that just shows that I kind of like I don't know, like I don't know which language I'm losing in a way, because I could speak both without a problem in a way. So it's interesting to hear how you like, because English has been longer language for you. That's the same with me as well, but right now Japanese is catching up to that year in a way.
Do you use English more or Japanese more?
Japanese. I only use English when I'm like, you know, speaking with you or any other like foreign like people, but it's mostly Japanese because my work is all Japanese people. So, or unless I go to like for work, go abroad, that's the only time I speak English. Other than that, I watch YouTube like in English. I will, but like mostly like animes and stuff are all in Japanese.
So do you feel like your mind is better to understand English or better to understand Japanese? So like if you're watching a Japanese anime and if it was possible to have English titles, would you focus on just the voice or the titles?
Both. I tend to read the subtitles.
Yeah.
At the same time I listen to the voice. So I think that's how I process things as well. That's been like my way of learning the language. So that still hasn't like I'm still doing that same it's a I forgot the word now.
There it is.
Like shit. Like se.
Yeah.
Habit. That's my habit that I have.
Yeah, I'm the same. I watch English movies, but I always put Japanese titles. Just because I can link what they say to like Japanese titles. Even when you go to the movies, sometimes I focus too much on the titles because I get so engaged, and I enjoy like reading what it is, and because I can hear it at the same time, so I can kind of connect the titles and what they're saying together.
Oh, but I do the opposite. I don't look at it during the movies.
Oh, okay.
Because I hate what the subtitle says.
Oh.
But it doesn't link with
Yeah,
it. You know,
yeah,
like
yeah.
Because like foreign joke and Japanese joke is completely different.
Yeah.
So
Because
like,
do you find it weird? Like, because you can see like it might be like what they're saying in like English, but then you read the titles and you're like, that doesn't.
yeah.
That's not what they're saying.
Yeah. So like in movie theaters when I watch like foreign movies, I laugh in a different location than the other people.
Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah.
I'm laughing. They're like, everyone's silent. Like, oh shit.
Weirdo.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, hey. But that's exactly like what it is. Like when you understand the language, like it's different. The different humor, different like kind of like I don't know, emotion. So it's interesting, but at the same time, it's like it's weird.
Yeah.
It's like, am I in the wrong or are they in the wrong?
So when you went from school to work, did you feel like there's a different level of Japanese? Like, because when you work in the working world compared to the school world, you have to use two different types of Japanese, like a formal style and then kind of relaxed style. How was it going from school, playground style Japanese to in like a formal style, work style? Because I've never like had like a proper job here in Japan, so I've had the luxury of always being able to speak like a kind of relaxed style of Japanese. Like you said before, Keigo, if you go into the work world, Keigo has to be used predominantly.
Right.
How was it going from, did you have to kind of like learn, well obviously you learn it in school, but you don't use it as much. How was it going from the playground style of Japanese to the work style of Japanese?
Like, so my experience is learning the formal style of Japanese. I had a very bad experience of where my senpai, he was a foreigner, and I spoke to him in a formal, not formal. I spoke to him in like more of a relaxed Japanese, and one day he really got mad at me for it. He's like, "I'm your senpai. You have to speak to me in a formal tone." I'm like, "What? Really?" That's when it hit me. Like, okay, I have to learn the language. I have to learn a formal style of Japanese.
Do you learn that in school here?
I didn't learn it in school. I learned it by speaking it. So I put myself in a situation where I speak in a formal tone. So desumasu, those things. I spoke to every senior I spoke to. That's how I spoke to them. Every people that I met for the first time, I spoke to them in that sense. But even then, it wasn't perfect, obviously. But once I got used to it, there was no problem for it. But that's how I learned it. I didn't learn it from from textbooks or like reading or in class. I learned it by putting myself in that situation, by talking to like my seniors and stuff, teachers, to learn the language itself. So that's how I got it. But in work, even like when I first started out working, there are times when I like say in like a normal word, but I say a formal word as well. I kind of mix it. It's right now I know the difference. So I could use it in a situation where I know I could joke around with this person, or I have to be serious with this person. So I kind of like differentiate it, use it in different situations and stuff. So That's how I do it right now.
So do you, in your work at the moment, do you predominantly use Keigo, the
Yes.
formal style
Yes.
of language? So when you speak to your clients, do you use
Yes.
Keigo?
Yes.
Because you're a freelancer, so you got no one above you.
No, above me, yeah.
Yeah. So are your clients, are they above you?
My clients are, yes, above me because they're my clients. So,
Do they speak to you in Keigo or?
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys are at the same level.
it's weird, right?
Yeah.
So, like, Kegel is respect
Yeah.
in a way, but it's more like you speak to one another in that form because, like, it's kind of showing, I guess, showing both sides of respect in a way. So, like, even though regardless if the client's older than me and I'm younger still, they still speak to me in Kegel because I'm a specialist in that field. So when it comes to filmmaking, I'm a specialist in that field. But they hired me, so I speak to them in that formal formal Japanese. But because I have a knowledge in this field, they speak to me in a formal Japanese as well. But it's weird. I guess it's like when you're speaking English, you don't really think about it because there are no that many type of barrier in English language. Actually, there's none in a way. But in Japanese, when you get to a certain point, then they speak to you in like a kind of like relaxed kind of tone, relaxed formal language. But until then, until you gain that real like connection, then it's always Kegel throughout in the work environment for me.
Kegel's like I think you said it in a previous, we talked about before, like you think Kegel is like a barrier
Yeah.
of like how you can separate yourself
Yeah.
from someone. Because I do agree that I think Kegel is like just a sign of respect. But and for me personally, in the rugby, in the sports world, I think if you can respect, if I respect a junior enough, that I want them to speak informal to me, because there's that barrier, like we're gonna grow a closer connection. So if there's like, obviously to a certain point, like if they're gonna get cheeky or get smart, then that's a whole different type of Kegel, or a whole different type of respect. But I think for me, if we can break down that barrier, like even when I talk to seniors, people that are older than me, if we're not speaking Kegel, like if we can speak to each other in a relaxed way. Obviously there's certain limits to it. Like you wouldn't disrespect your elder, talk to them in a certain way. But if we can speak informal to each other, I think that's the ultimate sign of respect, because like you said before, I think Kegel is like a barrier. It's a respect thing, but it's also like a barrier. And if you can cross that barrier, you can create a better connection. To a certain point, you don't want to disrespect them or get smart, especially in rugby. Like I always like ask, like the juniors just don't call me san, Jay-san, or be like too formal. But they know that like if they get smart or if they get cheeky or they do something bad, they know that it's rugby. It's a violent sport. I can hurt them on the field. I can hurt them in training.
You sound
a controlled
for some reason.
Controlled way, and a controlled, happy rugby way. But they know that there's a certain point. So I think if I can break down that barrier, and I think in sport in general, university it's a bit different. There's a massive hierarchy, like first year, second year, third year, fourth year. But once you get to pro and stuff like that, I definitely think the barriers come down, because you got families as well. So you integrate with each other's families. You hang out, because you're not in classroom. You hang out outside of rugby. You go barbecues together. You go drinking together. So I definitely think the amount of Kegel has gone down in sport. When you go to like the seniors, like the coaches, the bosses of the team, that's a bit different. But within the team, I think Kegel is not as present as it would be in a working world. Although it is our working environment, it's not as present as if you were to work in an office or something like that.
It's difficult to explain because like it's kind of like you have to kind of experience it in a way. Like I speak Keigo, like you mentioned, like I mentioned before. Like yeah, it's a barrier, one form of barrier that I use, a technique in a way, that I use to kind of like keep myself away from connecting too much in a way, because I don't know, it sounds bad, but it's not. It's like one step for me to kind of protect myself before connecting with this person. So like even though if I'm close to one of my like clients and stuff, I use Keigo still. It's not like I all of a sudden like kind of become like all playful and stuff. I use Keigo in a different manner towards them, so in a joking way, so I could joke around with my seniors as well. So it's a different kind of form factor. Like there are different ways to use Keigo. Keigo is not just one form of like way to use it. There are multiple ways of using it. So that's why it's in Japanese language is such a difficult thing to master.
Yeah, I agree.
Because there's so many forms to use. Because there's one above Keigo.
There is?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's towards a god. When you speak towards a god, the emperor.
Yeah.
When you talk with them, sama, like the emperor. When you it's how you speak to a god. Like that's all I can say.
Yeah, actually, I saw a video like 2 nights ago of like people, they had to like go to class and practice. Like if you wanted to see the royal family or the emperor, you have to learn how to greet them and like speak to them. They like, oh yeah, I just saw that. Actually,
even in the like if you look at the news and stuff, when they're talking about the emperor, they speak in a different manner. They don't speak.
Now
in
that you
normal,
think about
like,
it,
Keigo.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like there's a book called Oshaka-sama, which is like the Buddha. It's a story about the Buddha with a spider. So this one spider is like going down to hell and then coming back. That's what the story is all about. It's a story about life in a way, like life cycle.
Oh, okay.
In a way, like if you do something bad, I don't really remember the exact term, but I remember there was a Buddha and there's a spider, and then the spider's coming down and going back up. It's like a process of going back up.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, yeah.
But that book, when you like research it, like that's exactly the words that they use. It's not Keigo. It's beyond that. It's a beyond respect in a way. It's like, you know, we're speaking to a god.
Yeah, because I have two friends actually that work in the New Zealand embassy and the Samoan embassy. And I remember when they were to go and meet the royal family, they had to take lessons and classes on how to speak to them and how to greet the royal family. They had to like go to classes for like a week.
Wow, that's a long
before they could actually go in. And then they had to prove that they knew how to speak to them, how to greet them.
Right. Yeah, I remember the word now. Sonkeigo.
Sonkeigo.
It's in a form. It's when you translate it to English, it's called respect. Respectful form. So if there's a formal form, then there's a respect form.
So what is Keigo? What's Keigo?
Keigo's form. Formal.
Oh.
Like, it's difficult. Formal is more Keigo. So when you're in a like when you're speaking to clients, speaking to a customer, that's what you use. When you're speaking to the emperor or speaking about the emperor or like anything else beyond that, sonke.
Yeah, I definitely think Japanese language is just such confusing.
Yeah,
there's so many, even like to learn the alphabet.
Yeah.
There's like katakana, hiragana, kanji, and then you go to like keigo, then you go nomogo, and now there's the sonkeigo that I just found about.
You're learning something new every day.
Yeah, I know. It's an overload of like the Japanese language. It's a very difficult language to pick up and learn.
Yes, it is. Like even like the tone.
Yeah.
When you speak, when you're like trying to say this one specific word, it's not just that one specific word it means. Like depending on your tone of voice, like not tone of voice, but like depending on how you pronounce it, it's a completely different word. So like, for example, なんか似てる言葉で似てない言葉って何かあったっけ? Good one. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Oh, yes.
いる
Oh,
This
yes.
is like,
You're here?
are you here?
Need?
Or do you need?
Yeah.
いる That was difficult.
Oh, that's so confusing.
Right?
Now that I think about it.
When you think about it. We use it normally because we know that we kind of understand the language. When you think about it, it like, depending on how you use it, the word meaning changes. The sentence itself changes.
Oh, man. Wow. Now you got me thinking about the Japanese language. Oh my gosh.
This is what I went.
I feel like I'm a genius now that I can speak it, by the way.
Yeah, right?
Now that I didn't really think about it, I'm pretty much a genius.
Yeah, like that's how difficult Japanese is.
Yeah.
People say it's like, some people say it's easy, but no. Like when you want to master the language 100%, there is no way that this language is easy.
Yeah. Wow. Now that I think about it, wow. You got me in like going crazy thinking about the Japanese language now. I can speak. I'm a genius. That's all I can think about. I'm a genius. Oh, wow. But yeah, I definitely know that Japanese language is just, it's a language that will take time.
Yeah.
Especially when if you were to move over here, at first it's going to be so frustrating to try and learn it, to try and pick it up. Because when you learn it, you're just like, there's so many different types of way to learn it. There's so many types of Japanese. It's kind of an overload at first, especially when you read it in textbooks and stuff like that.
Right.
Because it's just, there's so many ways of learning it, so many styles of Japanese that you have to learn. But overall, I think for anyone that wants to try and learn the Japanese language, instead of like, obviously come over with a little bit of prior knowledge, but I think putting yourself in Japan, forcing yourself to kind of learn the language, to use the language, is the best way to pick up the language, I think, personally. Because that's how I picked it up over time. Books and notes and stuff like that definitely helped, but I think forcing myself to use it, to learn it, and to try and listen has helped me to speak the level of language that I know today. For anyone else, I think that's the best way to learn Japanese.
Right. Like, I think, any language, best way to learn it is be in that situation, put yourself in that environment. That's the best way. Like,
100%.
Like learning from books. Like I'm not a book type. I'm not a textbook type. I'm not like classroom type. I like to learn it in action through the real environment rather than like in class learning it from a teacher. That's not gonna get me anywhere. That didn't get me anywhere anyway. So
because once you see it, like just like where it's like atsui, you'll hear the other people say it, and you don't even have to like know what it means to understand what they're saying. Obviously, like really hot, and they're like, oh, atsui. Then you're like, oh, obviously that means hot. Or like just simple thing like, oh, someone bumps into someone and they say sumimasen. Like they bump into you and they'll say sumimasen. They'll say, oh, must mean like sorry or excuse me. Just like when you don't even have to learn it. You don't even need to know what it is. But you can kind of understand from the situation what that word means. So I definitely think it's a good way to learn the Japanese language. Yeah,
like this topic could go on and on
forever.
Endlessly. So like I'm gonna have to cut it right here. But like language, Japanese language, very difficult. But very fun to learn when you start to get used to it.
Yes.
There are so many ways to like express yourself in Japanese. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in to our channel. Please like and subscribe if you liked what you see. And we do have a Patreon, so please support us on our Patreon as well. Until then, see you all on the next episode.
Arigato. See ya.